Hey folks, hope you all are doing well. I'm Karan Bandal from Econosite, and in this video, let's talk about gold and the role it plays in a nation's economic stability. So, not that long ago, the gold standard was a global practice. As recently as in the late 1800s and a significant part of the 1900s, the so called classical gold standard era. During those times, countries backed the value of their paper money with gold. For example, in 1834, US dollars were convertible to gold at a rate of around $20 per ounce. That meant the US government at that time could not just release more currency in the system unless it acquired enough additional gold. In other words, countries were limited in printing money by the amount of gold they possessed. You can imagine how this system would limit the ability of governing entities to respond during war times, recessions, or during other such crises. The gold standard slowly eroded during the 20th century, and its decline picked up steam with the Bretton Woods Agreement after World War II, when the agreement forced US allies to accept US dollar as a reserve rather than gold. In return, the US government pledged to keep enough gold to back its dollars. But in 1971, the Nixon administration in the United States terminated the link between US dollar and gold.
Accordingly, I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators. I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States.
The result was a fiat currency regime in which the global economy now operates. Yet, gold continues to exercise influence with the key central banks around the world. Many countries still maintain gold reserves. I'm talking about the central banks of these countries. In fact, the demand for gold reserves is rising due to growing economic uncertainties. From a central bank's perspective, there are several factors that make gold so appealing even today. Gold acts as a stable and dependable store of value. Gold acts as a hedge during economic crisis. Its value often rises during economic downturns or geopolitical uncertainties, the trend we are noticing these days. Gold, being a tangible asset, can provide currency stability. Gold reserves continue to play a crucial role in shaping a country's creditworthiness and overall economic standing, even as new asset classes emerge like cryptocurrency. Some countries even use gold to settle trade imbalances or as collateral for loans. Can you see how gold is able to maintain its relevance with the central banks even after the end of the gold standard? It checks out if you look at the actual gold reserves with the global central banks. The United States is home to the world's largest gold reserves with over 8,000 tons of gold stored in 12 Federal Reserve banks across the country. China's story is interesting. The declared gold reserves of the Chinese central bank are a little over 2,000 tons and the country ranks 6th on this list. But experts claim that China is not fully transparent. And in fact, the PBOC has the second largest gold reserves in the world at a little under 5,000 tons. India comes in at the 9th spot with the Reserve Bank of India carrying roughly 800 tons of gold. Okay, we talked about the gold that is with the central banks. What happens if we take into account the gold that is with the people of these countries? Suddenly, India becomes a major player. India has a long-standing and strong affinity towards gold that stems from its cultural and local traditions. Gold serves twin motives here: adornment and investment. In India, even in recent times, access to banking facilities used to be limited, especially across large swaths of rural India. So gold has been the investment of choice. Now, the estimates of private ownership of gold vary quite a bit across the world, but it gives us something to work with directionally. According to the chief investment strategist at Geojit Financial Services, Indian households own around a whopping 27,000 tons of gold, valued at roughly $1.8 trillion at this gold price. We also have estimates for private gold ownership in the United States and China. Let's put all this in the context of total gold in existence globally. If you look at the best estimate currently available for the amount of gold that has been mined throughout history up to the end of 2023, a total of around 200,000 tons of gold is above ground. That means India and China each possess roughly 13% of total available gold globally. India, China and the United States together own over 30% of the total available gold. While it's good that Indians have a propensity to save and have acquired good amount of gold, this asset sitting in bank lockers and cupboards is not adding to any economic activity. India's economy needs decades of sustained growth to create a high standard of living for its people, and for that, this asset needs to be mobilized. For example, total bank deposits in India stood at around $2 trillion at the end of financial year 2023. These deposits enable banks to issue loans to small and big businesses, which in turn create economic activity, jobs, spur innovation and so on. Gold sitting in a safe at home does not do any of that. And so the Indian government has been trying to bring the private gold holdings into the banking system. And there are some encouraging signs. The gold loan market in India has flourished with a total of around 3,200 tons of gold being used as collateral. Banking access for Indians has drastically improved over the past decade, even in the rural areas, and so an increasing number of gold-backed financial products are being developed, such as gold ETFs, gold savings fund, sovereign gold bonds, etc. Even the government's gold monetization scheme has been recently revamped to make it more accessible. But a lot more is needed. Around 20% of India's household gold is pledged, with the money mostly being used for contingencies and consumption. That leaves a large pile of private gold that can be brought in. In summary, gold has historically been one of the key asset classes and still maintains its relevance. Just look at the amount of gold the global central banks hold. India and China probably hold the world's largest gold reserves between the two of them. But India's economy has a long way to go before it can catch up with the developed world. So it will help if Indian authorities find a way to bring India's private gold into its economic activity. I hope you found this analysis interesting. I'll speak with you again next week. Until then, take care.